Hello everyone, welcome to ChalkPainting 101. My name is Joanna, and in this presentation I will be discussing tips and tricks for chalk painting. Let's get started. I always like to have an agenda or schedule for meetings that I attend so that I know what to expect and to help me stay on track. So let's start by reviewing the main points we'll go over in this presentation. First, we'll go over what chalk paint can be used to paint. We'll move on and review some resources to help get inspiration from projects that you can complete around your house. Next, we'll cover the basic materials needed for chalk painting. We'll then move on and cover how to prep an item for painting, techniques for painting, and how to finish off a piece to leave it looking fantastic. We'll review a few cleanup tricks and finally get to check out a few before and after shots in the conclusion section. Our last two slides will have contact information for some helpful local and online resources, as well as contact information for me should you have any questions or concerns about this presentation. One last bit of information before we get started. In the bottom right of this presentation, you'll see a navigational tool. Use the backward and forward arrows to help you navigate between slides, and use the center paintbrush image to help you get back to this overview page in case you want to skip any sections or go back to one specific section that you were interested in and wanted to review. Alright, let's get started by covering how chalk paint is used. One of the best things about chalk paint is that it's easy to use. There's very little prep work required and it adheres well to almost anything. Another advantage of chalk paint is that it's a quick project. Most of the time you can complete a project, painting and protective coating, in one day. Chalk paint is also very versatile. As you can see in the images to the right and in the center of the page, it can be used on a variety of surfaces. Metal and wood are the most common, but lately I've even seen more and more people on Pinterest using stencils to chalk paint their tile bathroom floors, or others on Pinterest giving a facelift to their black leather headboard. Speaking of Pinterest and Instagram, let's talk about where some of the inspiration for chalk paint comes from. Before I start a project, I like to be sure of what I'm doing, whether it be the color combination used on a piece of chalk paint, furniture, or the process to strip and restain an antique coffee table from my grandmother. The main source that I like to use, and most DIYers use, is Pinterest. How women planned weddings before Pinterest, I have no idea. Pinterest allows you to create virtual bulletin boards and save your favorite ideas. Magazines are also a great source for inspiration. Some of my favorite that have chalk painting ideas are HGTV Magazine, Real Simple Magazine, and Magnolia Magazine. The HGTV channel also is a great source of inspiration. Just go watch a season of Fixer Upper or Tiny House and you'll have plenty of projects swirling around in your head. Instagram is also a great resource, but you have to do some scrolling and searching through hashtags to find the best people to follow. I try to focus on the ones who share resources and also show you how to complete the projects that they have on their page. And last but not least is brand websites. And what I mean by this is actual name brand of the chalk paint. A lot of those companies share tips and tricks on their website of how to use their product and the best ways to get the best look on your project. Let's move on to materials. First, we'll review paints and protective coatings. Chalk paints are known for their smooth, velvety, matte finish. They also come in a variety of different colors. Some people even like to mix colors to create custom colors. Most Chalk paints come in a quart-sized can and cover about 150 square feet of surface area. To give you an idea of how much that is, I covered my entire chest of drawers for my master bedroom, and I covered it twice with one can of chalk paint. Protective coatings are just as important as the paint. I can't stress that enough. Whether you're using a wax coat or a clear coat, your project isn't complete without them. They add protection and they enhance the color of your chalk paint. On the right, there's an example of different colors of chalk paint with different tones of wax coat on the piece. The most important thing to remember with wax coats is that a clear coat of wax must be applied before adding the darker coats of wax. You'll see that the very bottom is your clear wax, the middle is a dark wax, that's usually your antiquing look, and then they just came out with a black wax. If you do not use the clear coat under the dark or black wax, then the piece is going to come out darker than you want it to. That wax is going to give it a darker hue than you want. So it's very important to use that clear wax first as a buffer. The darker wax kind of pulls out the bristle strokes. Alright, let's move on to brushes. Brushes are extremely important. My favorite brush is a Purdy 2.5-inch natural bristle angled brush, like this one. I use this for painting trim and touch-ups on walls. I use it for chalk paint. I've even used it for staining wood furniture. I can't stress enough the importance of a high-quality brush. If you take care of it, it will last you for years and years. I also like to use a smaller natural bristle brush like the one that you see here, the Worcester All Stains brush. It has a shorter handle, and I find that it's very helpful to use that on detailed portions of your furniture. So the little nooks and crannies, my hand just starts to cramp up with the longer handle brush. So this shorter handle gives you a little bit more movement, and I find it very helpful. The last brush that I'm sharing with you is the chalk painting brush, and it is for chalk painting and wax. This is the standard brush that you see with chalk painting. This is what's recommended by most chalk painters. It is especially useful for the wax coats. Alright, let's move on to tools and accessories. There are a few other items you'll need to complete a chalk painting project. A clean cloth or paper towel to dust off your piece of furniture. A screwdriver to remove any hardware. A drop cloth or leftover cardboard box to protect your floors. Painter's tape and sandpaper. Now that we have our supplies ready, let's move on to prep. To prepare your piece for painting, wipe down all the surface areas of your furniture with a clean cloth or paper towel. The last thing you want is dust or dirt mixing in with your paint and sticking to your furniture. Remove any hardware and place them in a plastic baggie or tray for safekeeping. Protect your floors by placing furniture on a spread out piece of drop cloth, or what I've found useful is a cardboard box that's been unfolded. So I just like to cut it in half and lay it out flat. I always have cardboard boxes laying in my garage from Amazon or whatever it may be that I've ordered online. And that I just find is a way to recycle that piece and to help protect my floors. You can also see in this picture to the right that the painter used cardboard to protect her rug while she painted that nightstand. And last, go ahead and tape off any sections you want to keep paint free with some painter's tape. Alright, time to paint. Here are a few tips for painting with chalk paint. First, use long, clean strokes of the brush. Brush strokes give the furniture part of its character, but you want to make sure to minimize the amount of stroke lines that are visible. As you paint, remember to use a larger brush for large surface areas, such as the top of a piece, and a smaller brush for the more detailed nooks and crannies. For most projects, you'll only need to use one coat of chalk paint. The exception to this rule that I have found is with black furniture that you're painting with white chalk paint. I prefer to use 2 coats of chalk paint just to make sure that that coverage is very good and none of that black is coming through. If you choose to complete 2 coats of chalk paint, or maybe you have more than one piece to complete during the day and you want to take a break in between, make sure to wrap your brushes with saran wrap. It keeps your brush from drying out, and the last thing you want is to have that dried up piece of chalk paint sticking to your piece after you get started again. So just make sure to wrap it. It keeps it fresh and still keeps that moisture in the brush. Your paint is going to dry in about 2 to 4 hours. So once it's had enough time to dry, you'll be able to move on to your wax coat, which is coming up next. After your chalk paint has had ample time to dry, you're going to want to apply a finishing coat. There are different types of finishing coats that different chalk painters use, so we'll go over those on this slide. First, there is the wax coat that we discussed earlier. There's different types. When you're using a wax coat, remember to work in small areas and use a thin amount of wax at a time. As you go, remember to wipe off any excess wax. You don't want any big clumps sticking in those grooves of your furniture. And then last, remember that if you're going to use a dark wax, that antique wax look, remember to use your clear wax first and then apply the dark wax over top of it. Gives you a better result and it looks nicer for that antique finish. Another type of finishing coat is a clear coat. This is my preferred method when I work on different pieces of furniture. Apply a thin layer at a time. I usually go with 1 to 2 layers of the clear coat, depending on the furniture. And I just find that it's more durable. I'm not as worried about putting down a glass of water and that water glass sweating and getting some liquid onto my furniture. I'm not as worried about that ruining my furniture as I might be with a wax coat. I also just find that it looks cleaner. I'm a fan of the chalk paint and the quickness that I can get a piece of furniture done with a chalk painting technique. However, I am not as much of a fan of the antique look, and that's just a personal preference. So my preferred method is going with that clear coat. I just find that it makes it look clean and finished and doesn't have as much distress to it. Also, if you're using that wax coat, or you could do it with a clear coat as well, you can have the option to distress your furniture. And so if you're going to distress it, you just take a little piece of sandpaper and along the areas that are most used, so around maybe a doorknob or the little knobs on your furniture, or on the edges of a piece of the drawer or the edges of the corner, things like that, you'll just take the sandpaper and lightly sand it until you can see the wood or the metal come through, and that's just to make it look like it's been used a little bit. Next, we're going to talk about cleanup. The most important step of the cleanup process, in my opinion, is cleaning your brushes. Remember, they'll last you for years if you take proper care of them. Wash your brushes with soap and water until the water runs clear through the bristles. Protective coats normally dry in 2 to 4 hours, so make sure to remove your painter's tape before the project completely dries so that the tape doesn't pull off any of the paint. Once the protective coat is dry, go ahead and replace that hardware. You can also remove the drop cloth once your furniture is dry. Alright, are we ready to see some finished products? Let's check out the conclusion. As you can see through these short, quick steps we've reviewed, chalk painting is quick, simple, and beautiful. Here are some projects I've completed, each of which only took me a day to complete. On the next slide, I'll share some resources I've found helpful in the years of chalk painting my own projects. Annie Sloan is the best of the best in chalk paint. Her goal when she created her own chalk paint business 30 plus years ago was to be able to complete a project start to finish in one day. She's gone on to become the main brand in chalk paint. Her site hosts video tutorials of different painting techniques and also has numerous tips and tricks to help new painters. Her website is www.anniesloan.com. Another great resource that I use is Scout and Tag. Scout and Tag is a local store in Lakeland, Florida. They sell refinished furniture, they stock chalk painting supplies like Annie Sloan, and they also host DIY chalk painting classes. Their website is www.scoutingvintage.com. These are just two of the numerous resources available online and locally. If you have any questions or comments, please contact me at jokfowl@knights.ucf.edu. Thanks for watching my presentation.